What if I told you the reason your glutes aren't growing isn't because you're not working hard enough, but it's actually because you're working too hard on the wrong things? I know exactly what it feels like to show up every week, do every best glute builder exercise that you see on the internet, to look in the mirror and still feel like you're seeing zero results. Because genuinely, that used to be me. Like, that used to be my story. I spent years in that frustration cycle, doing the right things but getting the wrong results. Everything changed for me and the hundreds of women I've helped coach when I stopped just doing the best glute workouts and actually learned how to train them with intention. And because I've walked that walk and I've learned the science that actually creates a physique shift to grow your glutes, that's why in today's video I'm going to take you through the exact glute growth blueprint I've refined over the years so you can do the exact same. So by the end of this video you'll be able to take away the exact structure for your next glute day. So we're not second guessing our workouts, changing or adding in exercises or that extra set anymore. You're going to go into your glute workouts knowing exactly what you're going to get and being intentional about it so we actually grow our glutes this year. But before we dive into creating your perfect glute workout, please make sure to hit that subscribe button if you aren't subscribed already. If you love gym girl content, if you love wholesome content, eating well, building your physique, building your glutes, you are in the right place because I post videos like this every single Sunday. So make sure to keep watching because by the end of this video you'll have the workout to go apply, as well as I'll be showing you the exact workout I've been using for the last 8 months to grow my glutes, which have actually seen results. Let's get straight into it. When we want to grow our glutes effectively, we don't just want to do legs, we want to zoom out and see it as a whole, to grow quality glute muscles. We want to, 1, be able to move the hips properly. The glute muscle is attached to actually your bone. So if you have tight hips, pinchy hip flexors, or you're feeling kind of stiff, this is going to limit you massively and be less optimal for growth. Secondly, we train mechanical tension. So aka this is your heavy lifting. And thirdly, metabolic stress. So this is the juicy pump that we all love. So here is a scientific breakdown of the perfect glute workout. We're wanting to hit every fibre of the glutes, so we must train them in 3 different lengths, which I'll be showing you exactly which exercise options to pick from for this and how to do them in the video. So firstly, you need to train them in the 3 positions: lengthened, which is that stretch position of the glute, so thinking things like RDLs; mid-range, which is where you control the glute, so think of things like step-ups; and then a shortened position of the glute. So this is essentially where I want you to think of the squeezing part of the glute. So things like hip thrusts are a great example. And on top of that, if we're really wanting to just put the ice on the cake to ensure that our glutes grow very well, is you want hip extension, which is the glute max for size, and abduction for the glute med, which is that sort of shape and width that we're wanting. So starting off my workout, you can see here I'm doing a good warm-up. So I'm taking time here. I take about 5 to 10 minutes doing my warm-ups, making sure your hips are able to move properly so that your glutes can stretch and contract exactly the way we want to. If your hips move poorly, your glutes are going to not be able to move alongside those hips, which is going to then have issues with being able to lengthen and shorten the glutes, which is what is needed to grow. So if you have issues here, taking some time with your warm-up is so essential. As you can see here in the video, I'm showing you a different variety of the warm-ups that I do. If you're unsure what you need to be doing for your warm-up and how it can help you effectively, I'll do a breakdown of my full warm-up routine down below in the description, or follow me on Instagram at leahpanther_, where I share things like this every single week. Now, starting off with our first movement of the glute workout. This is where we're going for a heavy hinge exercise. So again, thinking of that lengthening and stretching of the glute, what I want you to be thinking of is a hinge movement focuses on the ham glute tie-in. Your glute are stretched under the load, so as we come down into that hinging pattern with the load is wanting to pull us downwards, and your glutes are resisting that. This helps build a deep glute tissue and adds that overall thickness, especially the lower glute, to really drive hypertrophy and muscle growth overall. So what I want you to be thinking of is choosing one lengthened exercise. This could be something like a barbell RDL as I'm performing here, a Bulgarian split squat's really great, a B stance dumbbell RDL, or even dumbbell RDL, which I'm doing here. All of these are really great as a hinge pattern to lengthen the glute to start off with. I always suggest to start off with a lengthened exercise to start off your glute workout, because these are the most taxing on your glutes and they actually take the most amount of energy. So starting your workout when you're the freshest on something like this is really really helpful. Now, as you can see in all my hinge patterns, I'm really taking my time in the lowering phase, thinking around 3-second control down. This is really important important as you create micro tears in the muscle fibers that lead to growth when you are obviously stretching and lengthening that glute. So not rushing this part and really being intentional is really, really important. I want you to imagine you're trying to close a car door with your glutes, pushing your hips back as far as possible until you feel a stretch, and then thinking about almost snapping your hips back up, but making sure you don't hyperextend your back or hips at the top. You just want to return to a neutral part, taking time, thinking about your breathing and bracing before you go down into the next rep, not rushing that lowering phase. Like I said, it's so essential that we really focus on that stretch part of the movement. Next, I'm moving on to a shortened position of the glute. So this could be anything, and depending on where I am with my workout and training split, I'll choose something like a hip thrust machine, a B stance dumbbell hip thrust, or even a CAS glute bridge. You can do these on the Smith machine, you could do this with a barbell, or even on the machine. It depends on the setup and what you want out of the movement. If you do choose something like a CAS glute bridge, this is essentially a modified hip thrust with a smaller range of motion, so you're able to lift a little bit more here. It's unlike a full hip thrust. A CAS bridge keeps attention entirely on the glute by not letting the quads take over the movement at the bottom. But it's completely up to you and what you want out of the movement. I personally prefer a full hip thrust just to get that stretch on the bottom of the glute before coming up and getting that full range of motion. I will personally always choose a slightly higher rep range because the glutes can take a little bit more volume when they're in that shortened position, as it's not as taxing to recover from. So what I want you to think of here with my setup, I'm really taking my time with my foot positioning, taking my feet roughly around hip width apart. I personally have my feet straight forward so that I'm able to fully plant my feet into the ground and having full foot pressure, which is so essential. I don't think about pushing through my heels. I think about having full foot pressure with a platform to be able to expose as much power through this movement and be as stable as possible. Something as a key tip here is keep your chin tucked to your chest and your ribs stacked underneath your rib cage. That ensures that you're bracing properly and you're moving and you're hinging your glutes in the way that we want to in the hip thrust itself. And I want you to make sure that you're not arching your back and losing that glute engagement throughout the movement, and making sure you get full hip extension, aka that tabletop flat surface of the hip thrust at the top of the movement to maximize results. Next, I'm moving on to a deficit reverse lunge, or anything like a front foot elevated lunge. A walking lunge will do fantastically here. This is a unilateral part of the workout, which is so essential to focus on any imbalances, focusing on each leg at a time, making time to focus on having that unilateral work inside. It does take a little bit longer, but I promise you this is so important. Something like a deficit reverse lunge, as I'm doing here, I'm elevating my front foot and taking a step back whilst externally stabilizing myself to remove issues with balance and really focusing on that glute stretch at the bottom of the lunge. I want you to think of this movement as almost like the underbutt lift. That's the best way I can describe it. And the deficit allows your hip to travel lower than the ground level, putting the glute in an extreme stretch. What I would actually suggest here is using and starting with something externally stabilizing you if you wanted to do a deficit reverse lunge, just to focus on that glute movement and that hip movement at the start, and taking some time to slightly lean your torso ever slightly forward, tucking your hips so your pelvis is neutral and your hips aren't dumped back. And I want you to take a step back and lunge deep into that stretch, taking your time, adding a juicy pause at the bottom if you can to really maximize that stretch on the glutes. But you can choose any exercises, like I mentioned, anything from a reverse deficit lunge, a walking lunge, a static lunge, even Bulgarians come under this part. This moves beautifully into the next part of the glute workout, which would be something like a mid-range. So this crosses over, as I sort of touched on, into the mid-range, which is understanding that your glute is under the most tension in the middle portion of the lift, okay? Step up, which is a great alternative. Again, this is a unilateral movement. So step up is unilateral as well as a mid-range. So if you incorporate this into your workout, you're ticking both of those off really, really well. Constant tension throughout the movement. So there's no full rest at the bottom or the top. And that really takes your glute under a full load throughout the movement itself, which is really, really important. Finally, to finish off the workout, we're doing isolation work. So this is to isolate the smaller muscles to focus on building the overall shape of the glute. Thinking of the side or the upper glute, you want to be thinking of things like kickbacks, abductor work, adductor machine. These are sort of like you're sprinkling on a cupcake. So, the main things that you should be focusing on is your heavy hinging, your compound movements to really grow your glutes. This is almost like the sprinkling on top, or if you were to add ketchup to your chips, it's like that, right? It just brings the whole dish together. So I want you to be thinking that isolation work work is really when you're starting to finish your workout and your glutes just need that sort of extra touch. Think of something like a kickback, cable kickback, where you can use a bench here. Here I'm showing you a variety. So you could use the adductor, which works both sides at the same time. I really want you to be taking time here, focusing on adducting slowly and pausing on the way out, taking your time and squeezing your glute when your glutes are abducted, not rushing that part. Really want you to think about isolating that glute itself. If you were to do a kickback, what I would suggest here is taking your time, hold on to the cable stack for stabilization, tuck your hips under so that your hips are stable and neutral, which is needed for glute growth. And you're going to take your working leg and slightly turn and adduct your foot out towards the side around 30 degrees. This already shortens the glute before you even kick back, which is really, really helpful for that glute contraction, which you want in a kickback. And you're gently going to think about taking and almost scooping that leg out towards the wall beside you. The kickback is a very short range of motion, so you don't want to be kicking back as far as you can. You don't want that lower back to be moving with it. Best and helpful coaching tip that I will ever give for myself and my clients is take your time with this. Go light, take your time, focus on the contraction. If you're unsure of any of these exercises, make sure to follow me on Instagram, leahpanther_, because it will help you, and I've got so many helpful tips. Or if you have any questions in the comments below, don't hesitate. I'm more than happy to dive into them with you. So that's an overall of how you want to be looking at your workouts for glute and maximizing growth. You want to be making sure you're training the glutes in all of those positions, as well as thinking about how to stack and layer them. So just to finish off and round up, I'm going to go through the exact method step by step so you can take this formula and apply it to yourself. So first, you want to be making sure to build your perfect glute workout, you first want to have a lengthened position of the glute. This is your hinge patterns, your RDLs, B-stance RDLs, or Bulgarians. That's going to be the first thing that you apply. The next thing, we want a shortened position of the glute. So this is why I want you to think of your thrusts. Hip thrusts are really good at this. Calves glute bridge is really good at this. Anything of that sort is going to be great. Next, you want to be thinking about a mid-range. This is something that people overlook, but this is massively important for the overall development of the glute, as well as stability and strength carryover. So these are your squat patterns, things like your step-ups, where the glute is under tension across that mid-range, that mid-stretch of the glute. Leading into the final two aspects of the perfect glute building exercises, you want to be looking at isolation and unilateral movements. Now there's a bit of crossover with other movements, so just make sure and ensure that you have at least one of these exercises in all of the aspects to make it a perfect workout. So next we're going to go up for unilateral movements. This is perfect for imbalances. You want to be thinking of things like Bulgarians, step-ups, single leg press, anything of that variety. Well, obviously if we're looking at something like a Bulgarian, this is going to be a lengthened part of the glute. So if you put that in your workout at the start, then you've ticked off the box that you've done a unilateral movement. Then finally, the sprinkles on the cupcake, your isolation movements. This is really where what I want you to be thinking about. It's just bringing everything together. You've done your whole workouts, which is really the steak, the potatoes, the veggies of your workout, and this is a sprinkling on top. This is great to develop the upper glute, so anything like kickbacks, adductors, you can use a bench to do kickbacks, you could slightly turn out your foot 30 degrees. If you guys want to see a demonstration or a breakdown of exactly how I've done this to help my clients as well as myself grow my glutes, I'm more than happy to do that. Let me know in the comments below. But you want to be making sure that you finish your workout with some sort of isolation movement. So hopefully that helped, guys. On the screen now, I'm going to give you the exact workout program that I've been following for the last 8 months. This is just a template to show you guys exactly how I structure my workouts and how I grow my glutes over the past 8 months and how you can do the same. I want you to use this only as a template. Of course, this is what works for me. Every single person is going to be slightly different depending on their starting position, what they want out of the workouts. And if you want to know exactly what workout you should be doing or seeing results in other areas, please make sure to follow me on Instagram, as well as drop me a message in the comments below if you have any questions. But apart from that, make sure to hit the subscribe button and I'll catch you in next week's video. See you later.